Hello YouTube, this is Hunter Surge here with day 5 of Firestorm reveals, reactions, talking, good stuff. So we have gone through 3 out of the 4 feature runes, so obviously today is going to be Zeus stuff, which I'm very excited about because Vol Tempest on face is like the strongest of the big boss cards. Before we get into that though, we have some collection number talk. I love collection number talk. Oh, it's the biggest nerd shit in the world. It's the best. So, the big thing is that we got the inset numbers of Sluggle through Majesty, which is number 28 through number 30. So, that tells us a number of things. One, it triple confirms basically at this point, that the champion cover card line is the start of that element's Elestral numbering. That was pretty evident from the start. That's always been the case in previous sets, that the cover cards have come first. But extra confirmation of that, which tells us even more. Okay, Earth is getting like 11 Elestrals. Two of which are the Spine Nymph line that's actually for Hermes. But Earth is getting quite a bit in this set. What that also tells us is that Fire is actually only getting 8 Elestrals in this set. Which means that the split of Elestrals among the elements is very balanced, which I'm very, very excited about. Very glad to see that. It was one of my biggest concerns. Like, one of the most annoying parts of Frostfall through Moonrise is how few Elestrals, how few cards in general the other elements got in each set. There was very little room for those elements to get like new exciting strategies because they were getting so few cards in each set. But in this set, it's looking like every element gets a fairly balanced 8 to 10 Elestrals, which is like sometimes an element would get half of that in the previous sets. Like, look at Frost, for example. Frost got a total of 4 Elestrals in Moonrise. 5 if you count Cedar Soar. It wasn't a whole lot. It was the same for Frost in Daybreak, if I recall correctly. Like, not a whole lot of Elestrals per set. And, like, sometimes that small number is enough to make a big impact, but a lot of the time it wasn't. So having a balanced 8 to 10 Elestrals per element is really, really nice. That's enough room to give a significant shakeup to what that element is able to do, especially since, like, as we're seeing, the champion archetypes are like 6 to 8 Elestrals apiece. And those are obviously enough to give a big shakeup to an element. That also tells us one other thing. So in the starter decks, for Champions of Hestia, we were made aware of Earth Scout, Majursa, Infrix, Warmite, and Torchen. Now, those, based on Exaltair, we know that the other champions come after the cover card. So these 3 slots are probably those. Now, I imagine they want to give some non-champion stuff to each element in the set. So there is very little room with which to do that with only 3 fire slots remaining. With only these 3 fire slots remaining. So that says to me that there might not actually be any more champions outside of what's in the starter deck. Like, for other elements, of course, like we've seen the champion of Kion, Urskote, whatever. So we will see like some of those for the divines that aren't getting like a big archetype in this set. But for the ones that have the starter decks, the champions we see in those starter decks might be all we're getting. For most archetypes, that's probably going to be fine. But for Hestia, that's kind of bad news because we already know Infyrix. Infyrix is not particularly impressive, not like the sort of card that really like makes the archetype jump out. Hestia as a divine rune is pretty weak on face and needs a lot of strong synergies to be worth going in on. One of those remaining 2 champions is probably a Searcher for Hestia, which leaves, unless the other upside on that Searcher is really, really strong, that leaves exactly 1 champion to make the entire archetype worth playing. And those aren't terribly good odds. Now, potentially, the slack could be picked up there in the rune department, because as we talked about yesterday, Poseidon being at number 82 confirms that there are 5 more unrevealed fire runes. No other element can fill those slots based on the ordering rules that we've seen thus far, because divines always start in elements. So these can't be water, and there's no element between fire and water in the collection ordering. So these 5 runes have to be fire runes. One of those is a Hestia related card like Poseidon's Fury that we know the name of from the starter deck, but the other 4 are complete unknowns. Wind is getting also similarly looking to get a very large number of runes, and I'm really hoping we see some like just generally good invoke and counter runes, because that would help like diversify the Kara lineup, give people more reason to splash into these elements that they currently aren't splashing into, and just generally diversify the counter rune lineup, because that's an area that could really easily be diversified by adding like a new good fire counter rune and a new good wind counter rune. So I'm hoping for that kind of stuff. But with that said, let's get into the new cards. So first up, we have the new art for Zeus. We have its numbering in the base set, in the core set, right here. So based on that, we know it's going exactly where I said it was going. It's going to 84, then Zeus's call will be number 85. And that's all water and thunder are getting for runes in this set, unfortunately. A bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. Very nice to have a Zeus reprint. Also, you might notice, the previous version of Zeus said give it -3 attack and -3 defense until the end phase, I believe. And now it says until the next turn. So I guess subtle errata, like getting rid of the weird end phase rulings, because like until the end phase actually technically means until the beginning of the end phase. So you know, that's just a slight change in wording. It is like slightly relevant when talking about Elestrals, because Elestrals has the same type of wording. But Elestrals is a Champion of Zeus. We've talked about this before. This is a 3/1 that just gets +1 attack for every Thunder enchanting each Zeus on your field. Very, very good card. Not having to actually expend your Zeus to get this Elestrals up big enough to like beat over an Ass Rabbit is very, very, very nice. And if your opponent has a big guy, you can disenchant from Zeus, debuff the thing, and this Elestrals is able to take out what, up to ignoring like the possibility of divine healing to get Zeus back up. This is it can beat over as high as 8 attack. 8 attack / defense. It can crash into a 9 attack. Very, very nice. Very cool card. Like this thing a lot. It's a very strong start for the archetype. And the fact that it's still 3 attack on your turn isn't that big of a deal, because when this gets beat over, you go, okay, eat this Full Tempest. Oh my god, it's so good. It also, because of the timing, it can't die to Battle Step Gorgon's Gaze, because the attack buff is already fully applied during the attack step. So if your opponent wants to stop it, they have to do it during the attack step and thus cancel the whole attack. And it also beats Specterus. It is a self-attack buffer that does beat Specterus, because Specterus's effect isn't going to happen until the attack buff has been locked in. Very good stuff. Now let's talk about Gryph-use. I was really excited for Gryph-use because similarly to Globby, it didn't need to be a bridge. And wow, is this card impressive. This card is insane. So Gryph-use, Champion of Zeus, is a 6/2 Thunder Wind. It can just special ascend from your hand on top of any Champion of Zeus card. It's crazy. Like, Pulveror was like an exciting card that didn't quite shake out because there weren't good ways to like set it up, but like was like, okay, so this is like a 7 body that we can just drop on any lunar, and like it just invalidates PTA if they use PTA on your guy. And this is the same thing, but the only setup it requires is you have is that you you have Champions of Zeus. That's all the setup you need. You don't even need Zeus on the field for this card. I think that's the craziest part about Griffuse, is that Griffuse is fully online even if you don't have Zeus, which is very, very nice. It means the deck is still very capable of getting over stuff and applying pressure even when you don't have Zeus. Very incredible. It has to be properly enchanted, so you can't go put a water on it so it's immune to Tsunami, or put a frost on it so that it can't be cryoblasted, because it is only 2 defense. And then also, when you cast Griffuse, you can give all of your opponent's Elestrals -3 attack until the next turn. It's a Nobby or Doppelganger effect that doesn't care about what type of spirits they're enchanted with. This card's crazy. It's so good. Oh my god. Like, it's so hard to envision a world where the Champion of Zeus stuff isn't good, because Zeus is already a really good divine rune. Griffuse is crazy, insane, just nuts card. And like Elegic is also like really solid, and Volt Tempest is extremely scary. Turns any Champion of Zeus on your board into, all right, try me, beat over me. You better have those Cryoblasts. Can only Cryoblast for so long. Like, oh my god, it's so good. Incredible card. Then we have Volt Tempest, of course. To quickly go over this again. This is a 14/7, 2 Thunder, 1 Wind, that when your Champion of Zeus is destroyed in battle, you can just special cast this from your hand with the proper spirits if your Zeus is enchanted and you control no Elestrals. Those are conditions you'll of course have to keep in mind, but this card's still extremely powerful. It's basically like the best way to think about it is it's very similar to Penterror, except it does it's like turning every Champion of Zeus on your field into a Hydrake that goes directly into Penterror and can't be beaten by suppression. It doesn't lose to suppression, which is really, really strong. Like, one of the main ways people stop Hydrake from doing its thing is they go, okay, I'll suppress you. I'll have a Specterus out. I'll Gorgon's Gaze you in battle step. Stuff like that. You can also do stuff where you PTA, paying off your only thing on the board. But with something like this, it's like, okay, I have like 9 1-cost Champion of Zeus's in my deck. I can just go into the next one. But also, PTAing a Champion of Zeus is a really risky prospect, because Griffuse exists. If you PTA a 1-cost Champion of Zeus, they just go, okay, they can just go, okay, special send into Griffuse. I keep my guy. Take 2. It's, oh my god. Like, this deck seems so powerful. The only thing that might hold it back is there's always the possibility that Zeus gets hit back to 1 because it's so strong, and that would limit the deck in some ways, but assuming that all the champion archetypes get a Divine Searcher, then, like, it's no big deal. And then lastly, we have the dedicated rune for the Zeus deck. This is Zeus's Call. So, hey guys, remember Stoke the Forge? So Zeus's Call is a 1-cost Thunder Invoke rune that can only be played if Zeus is enchanted. You search your deck for a Champion of Zeus, and you add it to your hand. So, like, the thing with consistency cards in Elestrals is that 2 cost has consistently been too much. However, 1-cost consistency cards have seen success. Now, obviously, there's all the 1-cost guys that on play search for a thing. But there's also Stoke the Forge. Stoke the Forge is a card that has seen a decent amount of success as a search card. And Zeus's Call is in the same cost bracket and has basically the same condition to allow it to have that. And, like, it's searching some very powerful stuff. Like, it means that, like, with Full Tempest, you can drop the count down to 1 to 2 and run 2 Zeus's Call and still, like, have basically as many copies as of your Volt Tempest as you want. It basically means that you don't have to run, like, a massive number of these very, very powerful Ascension cards. and can just run some Zeus's Call that can get it, but can also function as copies of your 1-cost Champions of Zeus to keep your guy count very healthy. This card seems very good. I always have to be a bit cautious when evaluating these like tutor cards because they've had like a rough streak in Elestrals, but this card seems very, very good. Especially like mainly in like what it allows you to do in like your deck building for this deck, because of the things that this deck wants to be able to do, the things this deck wants to be able to run, just very, very nice. And then we actually have our first creator reveal. This is from Full Frontage TCG. This is Pandalence, Champion of Artemis. So this is number 71. Let's look at our collect page. Let's look at where number 71 is. Number 71 is here. So that does fairly limit the amount of space that Earth potentially has. Also Omni Runes, but like Dan already said pre-Moonrise that there's only like 4 new Omni Runes in the next 3 sets. Something like that. And there were already 2 in Moonrise. So like there were 2, right? Yeah, there was Divine Healing and there was Spoiled Fruit. So there might not even be any Omni Runes in this set, but this leaves only 3 slots for any potential Omni or Earth Runes. This doesn't really indicate anything in terms of the space that Lunar has in this set because like it's not like the champions are focusing in this set, so I could see them being at the very end of the Lunar lineup, and the 1 stage Ascension line cards typically come at the very end of the Celestial lineup. So yeah. If we that makes like a decent amount of sense if we assume the same for Earth's Coat. That would leave not much space for Frost stuff though. Actually, we'll see what happens there. Yeah, that leaves a maximum of 13 slots for between Lunar and Solar, so they might be getting a bit of the low end of new cards, but we'll see. But let's talk about the actual card. This is Pandalence, Champion of Artemis. This is a 4/1, 1-cost Lunar. When 1 or more Elestrals become suppressed, or when a player places an Elestral with suppressed, an opponent must expend 1. So this is an interesting card. Obviously, the most interesting part of this card is that it has this section that mentions a condition that literally can't happen right now. When a player plays an Elestral suppressed is not a thing that's possible at the moment. It might become possible this set, or it might become possible in the set where Champion of Artemis becomes a whole archetype. This is like interesting but not good because it doesn't do anything standalone. Like the concept of going, okay, every time my Spectator swings, I'm burning you for 1. Every time I resolve Gorgon's Gaze, I'm swinging you for 1. I'm pinging you for 1. It's pretty appealing. But the card doesn't really do anything on its own. So like, until it has like a bunch of cards supporting this effect, I have a hard time seeing this card doing much of anything. So I don't think this card is actually very good. It's rare. That's a rare slot. That's crazy. That's crazy, man. All right. That's going to be it for today. That is everything we have to talk about. I'll see you guys later. This is Hunter's Earth signing off.